ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. I can't explain the world we in. I look around and see all things beautiful, no mistakes, He won't let us down. He's the one that can create all from nothing to something. So let us pray and let us thank Him for each day. La ilaha
Live by Islam. بسم الله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع سنته إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic discussion show, Live by Islam. I'm your host Ismail Bullock, and today inshallah we want to talk about something a bit different. We've had some very beneficial belief, aqidah based episodes going through Surah Al-Fatiha, etc. Last week we had an interesting episode about the lessons we can learn for Surah Al-Kahf, but today we want to talk about something, we want to talk about the prophetic way of teaching. And to do this with me is brother Gabriel al Romani. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for coming on.
Yeah, cool.
Now obviously, as we were discussing ideas for this show, something that came in your mind, which actually was a big reason, apart from the fact you're in education yourself, but something that really made you and pushed you to want to do this. And this is something that many of our viewers, wherever they may be, around the world, in the West, in the East, have seen this, and it's something which is very bad and is not from Islam. But you just been to a mosque Asr time, and you were telling me how you saw a boy who was reading the Qur'an, must have made a mistake, that the elderly gentleman, we won't necessarily discuss where he was from, but from the South Asian subcontinent, we can say at least, or the Indian subcontinent possibly, slapped the boy across the face extremely hard.
Right.
So that obviously upset you, and so it should. And I remember, and as I was saying to you, that we see so many people, or we hear these stories of people who say that I left Islam and I became such and such, and you find a lot of their stories are behind. It's not because in reality they found out Islam, which we know wouldn't be the case, is not the truth, or I found clear, no doubt about it, mistakes in the Qur'an. No, they usually have some kind of, like atheists a lot of the time, some kind of psychological, mental episode in their life that has caused them to take this stance. And many of them is, I used to go to the mosque, I was beaten, slapped when I was learning the Qur'an. So this is not an excuse at the end of the day, because you have a mind to say, well, this can't be from Islam, or maybe is this really from Islam when you grow older? But it's definitely a reason that starts to push people away, and then obviously they've chosen that, to be weak and follow that psychological issue or go down that road, is because they got pushed away from the Qur'an, from the mosque, from Islam, by these so-called mullahs or these so-called imams who were slapping them and beating them to learn the Qur'an. I mean, maybe you can discuss exactly what you saw and how you felt. And we'll obviously, during this time, we'll try and discuss what is the right way of education, the right way of teaching, inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam. First and foremost, I was, I think, coming to the show, and I was trying to think what to speak about. And when I saw that, I was like, man, we need to speak about this, because it happens so often. And first of all, the Prophet ﷺ forbade us from hitting the face. I mean, this is very clear, that you should not hit the face, no matter,
Even if it's an animal.
Even if it's an animal, exactly. And more so when you are teaching the Qur'an, you are teaching a child who is not yet formed his character, his psychology to be, if you slap me on the face or something like that, I might understand that you're just, this is not correct and I got upset or whatever, It's different. I know this is wrong. But for a young boy who's who's there, going there to teach, I mean to learn the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will associate that beating with the Qur'an. And this is something that is done involuntarily. We have to understand that. And as you said, some of the people later on in their lives, they turn out to be atheists, to leave Islam, and to say, it's good if they say that, oh, it's because I was beaten, and at least they know the reason why they left Islam. A lot of the times, this hitting, this negative emotion is associated with Islam, and they leave Islam, but they don't know why. They just have this internal hatred for the faith because of that, because that event in their life is not been resolved.
And I'd like to point out, obviously, to some of the viewers that you actually have a bachelor's in education as well as a bachelor's in psychology.
Yes, yes.
So you can obviously,
Yes.
so some of the viewers, they can, you will know what you're talking about in the sense of from the educational aspect as well as the fact that you're,
As much as I can, yes. Inshallah.
From psychology as well.
Yeah, so the human stages of development, you go through certain stages, there are certain ages. And that boy was probably around 7 or 8, and this is still it's a prime stage of formation, of absorbing and looking for a model in your life to start building your character on. So when that episode of violence takes place and you haven't solved it, you haven't talked about it, no one has stood up for you, no one has explained to you that, no, this is wrong, and what this person has done is wrong. You haven't resolved that episode. So you go through life, you grow up, and that causes you later on to take certain decisions in your life, or to associate certain feelings. When you go to the masjid, for example, you're going to feel anxiety. You might not know why. When you see the Qur'an, you don't want to read it. You might not know why. When you see a Islamic teacher or someone with a beard, right, you'll say, oh, I hate these people. You don't know why, right? Because you haven't solved that episode. For those who say, yeah, they used to beat me, there's still some hope. You can sit down with them and teach them and show them that, look, as we're trying to do right now, this is not from Islam. What that guy did is totally wrong, and he might be able to accept it. But for the one who doesn't know why he hates it, this is the dangerous one. And especially when, as I said, when it happens at this very fragile age, it's very, very difficult to solve and to get rid of. And there's a lot of people. I've met people who've told me, worse than being slapped. People are like literally, beaten and for making a mistake in the Qur'an. In the Qur'an, you're trying to learn. Yes, maybe you're making a mistake, but the Prophet never beat anyone for the Qur'an. No doubt in Islam, a parent is allowed to chastise his child and to, within the limits of the Sharia, with love, not out of anger and out of uncontrollable, anger. Then you're accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. It is some way of education. It is a person who fears Allah, who wants to educate his child as a father or a mother, who keeps in mind the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not some crazy who loses his temper and breaks bones and stuff or leaves bruises. That's not how it is. But never did the Prophet condone or allow anyone to beat someone for the Qur'an.
And what's kind of almost laughable is the fact that if this boy is making mistakes but he's trying, this is something where he should be commended, because we know the hadith of the Prophet talks about the one who is mahar in Qur'an, that he gets rewarded, the one who is skillful. And then he talks about the one yatata'ta, he stutters, makes mistakes because he can't, some things, if you're not an Arab, for example, or even for Arabs, you're going to slip up, you're going to stutter, you're going to, can't quite get it out properly, you're going to say it wrong, but you get more reward than the one who is skillful. Because, Allah's recognizing your effort. You're something, you don't find it easy, you're not skillful, but you're still trying, you get more reward. So how can you equate that kind of hadith there to then slapping the person in the face or beating them with a stick?
2 points here that are very important for us to understand is, number one is the quality of the teachers. Now, of course we respect our Islamic teachers, but not everyone is, we have to say the truth, not everyone is qualified to be a teacher. And this kind of behavior shows that, number one, that person doesn't know the ahadith of Prophet ﷺ, and he didn't study the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and how he behaved with people. Number two, that he knows it but he ignores it and doesn't follow it, which is even more grave. So we need to raise awareness. We need to invest in educational programs. We need to invest in researches and going back to the prophetic way of teaching. And that has to be by itself, I've been advocating for this for a long time, in and of itself, a standalone curriculum. You know, we should stop the Islamization of American curriculum, British curriculum. We have the real curriculum. The Prophet ﷺ taught people his whole life. The Prophet ﷺ had, left the Sahaba on a certain methodology of teaching people, and none of it involved, literally beating, slapping people on the face. Now we'll find some incidents where some of the scholars were strong on their followers, but not children. These were grown men, and they used to put some difficulties in their ways to see which one wants to really be, to go through this and to tread a path of knowledge, right? But not little children to be beaten and hit and so on, because the Prophet ﷺ, he knew that at this age, these children want to play. Yes, you're teaching them, but as much as they can take. More important, what you have to teach them, what you have to associate is these positive emotions with the Qur'an. And we know just a beautiful example of the Prophet ﷺ teaching Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, teaching him a very important principle in Islamic theology, in Aqidah, and that is the concept of qadr, and we can tell by the hadith that Abdullah ibn Abbas was very young, right? Because it says, Ya ghulam. So ghulam is a boy within a certain age range. He's very young. He's not reached yet, that puberty and so on. Inni u'allimuka kalimat. And I will teach you some words. And then he starts saying, Ihfadullah, ihfadak, take care of Allah, Allah will take care of you. And إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ, This is very important. And if you ask from Allah. And know that if the whole world was to gather against you, they cannot benefit you except what Allah has written for you. And if the whole world wants to harm you, they cannot accept what Allah allows for you. And he's on a ride on the back of a donkey or something. He's probably holding on to the Prophet ﷺ. They're going somewhere, He's not sitting on a chair and be like, learn, And it's this is not something simple. This is not, Fatha Dhamma Kasra, This is theology. This is like the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is to remove fear from you and put your trust and fear only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if the whole world gathers against you, they cannot do anything against you. And this is how I used to teach, And imagine the feeling that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh has with the Prophet ﷺ as a boy, holding on to him, on his back. It's different, There's a bond there. There's a bond of care and love. The Prophet ﷺ used to, wipe his hand over the head of the children. He used to stop and say salam. He used to sprinkle them sometimes with water. So many incidents are there in the seerah, in the authentic reported seerah and the books that are available, But I'm not sure why us, the Muslims of the 21st century, think that we can look somewhere else for a better model, or that we know it better, or so on and so forth. So compare that, what the Prophet ﷺ did, to what people do today, Anyway, there's very, very little inspiration in some of the teachers, very, very little care and love for your students. It's very little. And that impacts the future generation. Because now, as the children are going to grow up, they're going to feel alienated from the mosque, they're going to stay away from the masjid, they're going to stay away from the imams, they're going to stay away from Islam. And of course, the different methodologies and ideologies and philosophies are waiting with open arms, and being very kind and very nice. So it's a fitna that your people, what treated you harshly, and mashallah, these people are so away from, forget about it, they don't believe in God maybe, they're so kind to you and so loving, and they're sacrificing for you. So of course, this is a huge fitna for a human being, that he will be attracted to that, But the main thing here that people need to understand, that the children are going to have a difficult time to understand, but that we adults can understand, is that this is not the fault of Islam. So when they reach adulthood, they leave Islam blaming that person or whoever it be. This is wrong. But, I'm not saying it's justified, but he has a reason. He's feeling like that, as you said at the beginning. There's this psychological incident that happened that pushed him towards that. And it's very difficult for him to get out of that. It's not an excuse, it's not justifiable from an Islamic perspective, but for sure that person is also to be blamed who has done that. And then for sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question that person. There's no doubt about that. Why did you do this and this and this? And we know the Prophet ﷺ was speaking to some of the Sahabas, saying that do you want to turn the people from Allah? And do you want to be the reason that people are going to turn away from Allah?
And we know there's hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, the exact hadith slips my mind in its totality, but he said, يُسِّرُوا وَلَا تُعَسِّرُوا, make things easy.
And don't make them hard, yes.
And then the continuation of the hadith, I forget,
لَا
تُنَفِّرُوا, give glad tidings and do not push people away. لَا تُنَفِّرُوا, which means to push people away, to send them away. So again, and this is, what they're doing is completely the opposite. I mean, I'm sure many of our viewers, wherever they're from, they could be from certain countries, they could be from the Indian subcontinent, they could be from the UK. I mean, maybe some of them have experienced these kind of people doing these kind of things, and it has pushed them away from Islam, and they may be, unfortunately, to some extent, because of the negative effect, like you said, children associate. So if this child is getting beaten by this man only when he reads Qur'an at such a young age, he doesn't understand this is the wahy, this is the revelation from Allah with no doubt. I know the proofs, I've seen it, I've compared it. He doesn't know this, he's a small child.
Sure.
He will automatically think, even if he doesn't really want to, Qur'an means slaps in the face, means pain, means feeling bad, feeling disgraced, feeling humiliated, feeling upset. So that will have a complete opposite of that. And maybe, like you said, he'll grow up kind of doubting Islam. And like I said, that's not an excuse, but it's to some extent human nature that they will then start to say, like, what kind of people are these, Okay, like you said, then other people come to them and take advantage of them, and everything is love, which is what we're supposed to be as Muslims. We're not supposed to be harsh and horrible.
That's right.
In general.
Amazing that the same person who slapped him, be it his father or the teacher, whoever, is not going to slap that boy for maybe looking at something haram on a phone or something like that, or going on the street and doing something that is not correct. He'll slap him for Quran. You're fine. I mean, he's not going to tell him, son, what you're doing is wrong. Don't do this. Don't look at that. Most likely he would just slap him for the Quran. So imagine what kind of confusion it is. Like, well, I can be on the phone, I can watch this, I can watch some weird movies, or look at Instagram and look some weird stuff. And they you see these days everyone's on the phone. The parents give the kids their phone to just keep quiet, but he'll slap him for the Quran. So the confusion in the mind of the people that they cannot approach the Quran. The Quran is something so far away. The Quran is something, as you said, that's I don't feel comfortable with. I just want just the phone, the movies, the music. This is okay. No one slapped me for this. No one ever told me that this is wrong. But for the Quran, oh no, if I made a mistake or I did this or I did that, I got slapped. So human beings, growing up with that, there's a big confusion, and we find it today in the 21st century that more and more people are moving away from the faith because of the example of the so-called religious people, and specifically the teachers. And I've seen this phenomenon in many different countries, even in the Christian faith. When I went to Romania, my cousin, people, they're just disenchanted with going to church or anything like that, because they feel that these leaders of the church and so on, they're like not exemplifying, what supposedly what the faith stands for, So it's one of the easiest thing for them to do is to just stay away from it, to just not be committed to it. Same with the Muslims, and this is the danger, because the shaitan is always there, I mean, if you think about it rationally, okay, you don't like that person, so stay away from him. Whoever slapped you, okay, stay away from them. Go to another mosque, maybe, But the shaitan takes you slowly, slowly, slowly. He will rationalize to you and say, no, this is Islam. This person, he knows what he's doing because he's a teacher. So look, he should know. So you should move away from this. Leave this, Go to, this guy. Look at how nice he is. He's your real friend. He's your real advisor. He's real kind to you. So slowly, they move away, And now it's happening in masses. More and more people are becoming atheists. Before we used to have the issue of, people being lured in by missionaries, Now people are just totally going for, atheism, Buddhism, they want some spirituality, so they start practicing yoga and whatnot, and, being Buddhist, and they think, it's human beings we're just wired for spirituality. We need it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. You need that aspect of religion. Of course, what you put in it can be the right thing or the wrong thing. But more and more people, as studies are showing, are turning to atheism, agnosticism, and they add to it the spirituality part of Buddhism, because there's no so-called organized religion. You can do whatever you want, and so on. So if we don't tackle this issue from the root, which is those early stage, that early age, then later on we're going to be faced with this problem. And as I said back again, Muslims need to invest in this. They need to start thinking of how to bring an Islamic curriculum forth based on the life of the Prophet, the tarbiyah of the Prophet. There are many books written in Arabic on this. There's many examples in the hadith and the life of the Prophet of how he dealt with children. I think we should discuss some of the stages and how he took, children, and how he dealt with them in different aspects, and how the different age groups, how he was different, to them. And to the children he was different, to the elders he was different, and how he was able to transit these people, to move and to become, to this tarbiyah process, to become the Sahaba that were so successful in their age, in their community, is because they understood and they learned, they internalized those teachings. And of course, the result of doing it correctly is that you see, what the Sahabas did. I mean, that generation, in that short period of time, the success that the Muslim Ummah had in that time was just unparalleled till today. You know what I mean? So this is something that we need to impart with our audience, inshallah.
Well, before we go on to the various, some of the examples or stages that the Prophet ﷺ did that, before we do that, we'll just go for a quick break.
Sure.
So viewers, inshallah, join us after this short break.
Every time you feel like you cannot go on, you feel so lost and that you're so alone. All you see is night and darkness all around. You feel so helpless, you can't see which way to go. Don't despair and never lose hope, 'cause Allah is always by your side. Inshallah, 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 you'll find your way. Inshallah, 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 you'll find your way. Every time you commit one more mistake, you feel you can't repent and that it's way too late. You're so confused, wrong decisions you have made haunt your mind and your heart is full of shame. But don't despair and never lose hope, 'cause Allah is always by your side. Inshallah, 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 you'll find your way. Inshallah, Turn to Allah, He's never far away. Put your trust in Him, raise your hands and pray. Ooh, ya Allah, guide my steps, don't let me go astray. You're the only one who can show me the way. Show me the way. Show me the way. Show me the way. Inshallah, 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 we'll find our way. Inshallah, 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 we'll find our way. Inshallah, inshallah, inshallah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. I can't explain the world we in. I look around and see all things beautiful, no mistakes, He won't let us down. He's the one that can create all from nothing to something. So let us pray and let us thank Him for each day. La ilaha.
Live by Islam.
La ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, before the break, obviously, we discussed lots of things about, the wrong way of teaching Quran, teaching in general. We gave some examples how the Prophet ﷺ said to give glad tidings and not to push people away and to be easy with people and don't be hard on people, etc. So, before the break, you mentioned that we want to discuss some of the stages or examples of how the Prophet ﷺ educated people and children and people in general.
The Prophet ﷺ is the best example that we have, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, and we believe that, and not just that, it's proven in His life. And when you study His life and then you compare yourself to the Prophet ﷺ, and you find the Prophet ﷺ was from all different angles, he was perfection, because as an individual, I might be very good at certain aspects of my character, but not so good at others. The Prophet ﷺ, whenever you look, he was a balanced character in every single aspect. And we can't say the Prophet ﷺ was only merciful. He was merciful, of course, but at the same time, when the boundaries of Allah were crossed, he was also very tough, right? You can't say the Prophet ﷺ was only lenient and kind to people, because at the same time, when certain things will go through, he was ready to step up and deal with it, Sometimes, you find today the human characteristic, the human psychology of a person is that, mashallah, I'm very, very kind, but when it comes to, to do something, anyone can, push me on the side because I'm not, strong enough to stand up for myself. You find this is, or I'm very strong, I'm very harsh with people. When it comes to dealing with my family or my children, I don't have mercy or any kindness, and they're just suffering, You find that. You'll never find a balanced 100% person in this world. I mean, if you were to compare to the Prophet ﷺ, they're always lacking in something. One person can be very good here, good to his family, but he can never come close to the way the Prophet ﷺ worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to wake up every night for qiyam or anything there, He can be the best Muslim ever, So the Prophet ﷺ was just this example that we should try at least to get as close as possible to his character as we can. And one of his very important, aspects of his characters is how he dealt with people and how he taught people specifically. Why? Because he knew as a human being that he's going to depart from this world. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that he will die. And they will die, and you will die. So he was preparing the ummah. And I want the audience to understand, for those who are Muslim, who are watching, is that you are Muslim today because, after the Fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Islam, of course, it started from the beginning of creation, but the way we have it today, the Sharia of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it started with one person, one human being, and now we are almost 2 billion, one human being, one person started this by the blessings of Allah, from revelation from Allah, who believed and followed the way of Allah. And we are Muslims today because he cared about us. He wanted Islam to spread. He cared for his people. He struggled, he sacrificed his life to give us this deen, to teach us. Because what is Islam in the end of the day? It is theory, it is manners, it is knowledge, and then put in practice. And this is what education is. He came, you have a curriculum. The Prophet ﷺ had a curriculum, a divine curriculum from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he had to take that and make sure he understand how to prioritize, what to say, what not to say, who to talk, how to talk, and so on, that he may, inshallah, by the blessing of Allah, win the people. Of course, Allah is the one controlling the hearts, but he has to do his best to deliver this message. So when we look at education, the Prophet ﷺ, first and foremost, he was someone who had an integral character. It's something very, very important. If you don't have integrity in your life as a teacher, then people will not listen to you. This is as simple. He was, we know very well that he was the one, the trustworthy one, that everyone, no matter what, they didn't agree with him on what he was teaching, but still they knew that his character is flawless. So today, if a person tries to teach someone, if his character is not intact and proper, people will not listen to them. People will not open up to them. So Prophet ﷺ was that. The second aspect of the Prophet ﷺ's character that, blessed him to be able to impart knowledge to people in such a way, especially to children, it was his kindness, his way of dealing. And a lot of the hadith that are coming from the children of they were around the Prophet ﷺ, always talk about his kindness and how, they always remember things. They remember how he smelled. They remember how the softness of his palms. They remember that he was, and this is what we call in education proximity. He was always very close to them. And when you have that special bond, when I will tell you something, you remember that. And subhanAllah, look at this. Even a person, educationalists say that when you study, try to put some kind of a scented candle or something, a smell, because you'll associate that with studying. And then when you want to revise, remember, put the same smell back, And it's amazing. If you think about it, sometimes you go somewhere and you smell something, it reminds you of a certain incident that you've had in your life, either a certain food or a certain perfume or something. The Prophet ﷺ had this amazing smell, He used to wear atar, an oud. And the children report that we used to smell the Prophet ﷺ. Compare that, sadly, to some people, and imagine, when you teach someone, you're so close, and if you don't have, tahara and bodily hygiene, this is something simple. You can know a lot, but if you don't smell the person who's next to you, he's not going to be able, he's clenching his teeth.
And you reminded me of Ammar ibn Yasir, who said that he was, he worked as like a servant for the Prophet ﷺ. He said for 10 years, and he said never once did the Prophet ﷺ say uff,
yes,
or complain or say, lima fa'altu kada, or why did you do such and such. He said he never spoke to me like this. He never reprimanded me, as why did you do this? Maybe he corrected him in a nicer way, but he never actually said to him clearly, what are you doing? Why have you done this? Or what have you done? Or anything like that, which people do, all the time now, and so much more than that.
Every day. Compare that again to ourselves. How many times do we tell our children, why did you do this? you're useless, you know. A lot of us, some of the best people do that, you know. Again, compare that to the Prophet. Why was the Prophet ﷺ, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ? Allah uses the word عظيم, يعني. Allah uses عظيم for Qur'an, you know, but then Allah uses عظيم for the khuluq of the Prophet ﷺ. What an honor. And this is, in these kind of events, what you said, you realize it, because you look at yourself like, man, I just spoke very harsh to my children. And the Prophet ﷺ, for 10 years, didn't speak harsh to a servant.
And I mean, something else that pops to mind, which is something generally the Prophet ﷺ would do, is that even when he wanted, you know, address a person's mistake, nowadays, especially even in a classroom, we may see a particular student doing something, we may automatically say, Ahmed, what are you doing? Why did you do such and such? And then he might be, and then everyone looks at him and maybe they laugh at him. Prophet ﷺ, and we're not talking about children, we're talking about generally. It could be children, it could be adults. He would generally, to not embarrass the person, he would notice someone doing something right, and he would say, indeed those people who do such and such are such and such. Or indeed the people who do such and such things will receive such and such. So those people, that person or those people who are in that big crowd would get the message, but there will be no public humiliation. There will be no pointing out with fingers, and that's something that we can definitely learn from, because we tend to do it ourselves, whether we are managers, teachers, family. Sometimes we may point, and we may be all be guilty of this, we may point out one of our son's mistakes in front of the others when there's no need to do that. We can generally call them together and say, sons, doing such and such, kids, such and such is wrong, or our students, or our staff who work with us or under us. We can make a general statement, and they will know for sure that probably we know, and even if we don't, you know, that we know what they've done, and the message is given across to them and to everybody without any humiliation.
Exactly. And this is when the Prophet wanted to make a lesson out of this issue. Or in other cases, he would take the person on the side and advise him, in private. So this is beautiful, as opposed to, as you said, the whole purpose is that you should not humiliate anyone. Humiliation is something that is going to totally block anything from coming in.
I mean, of course, sometimes, there may be exceptions, which I think even the scholars allow, that if somebody was such a constant sinner, doing a particular sin over and over and over and over, that there's, to stop his evil, or to, they would, and that, especially if it could affect other people in the community, is to expose him in that sense. But that's obviously, those are certain conditions, but the general rule would be that Prophet ﷺ would not publicly humiliate them or take them aside. So this is something we can learn on an everyday basis.
It's amazing, yeah. So, again, when I look at myself, I look at what we do and compare it to the Prophet ﷺ, there's just no comparison. Going back to what I was saying about, the tahara, it's so important. And today, it's really, it kills your heart when you see that some of the people are not paying attention to that, and they're teaching. And the students are going to see, they're going to learn that, they're going to, be turned off by that. And it's a negative association. It's, you just don't like what you see, you don't like what you smell, and you're not going to be able to focus on learning. You're just not going to be able to do that. Same thing what we gave the example, to be slapped, you're not going to be able to absorb anything from that person. So the Prophet ﷺ was very, these are just very superficial things if you think about it. And this is given, we're not even starting to get into methodologies of teaching or pedagogy or anything like that. We're talking about basics, being kind, smiling. The Prophet ﷺ was smiling a lot, you know what I mean? And just recently we were talking a lot about, in the previous khutbahs, they were talking about smiling, It's just something, when you tell something,
Well, of course, we know the famous hadith, Prophet says that smiling is an act of sadaqah, it's an act of charity, to smile in the face of your brother.
Right, but if I tell you, if I'm trying to teach you, like 1 + 1 is 2, I'm excited. You gotta remember, 1 + 1 is 2, wow. Or like 1 + 1 is 2, there's a difference, I'm trying to teach you something, I'm enjoying it. 1 + 1 is 2, or 1 + 1 is 2.
And something else comes to mind is that sometimes not everybody will pick something up, and we know the Prophet ﷺ would repeat himself 3 times when he was teaching things. And I believe it was one time with you we were discussing this, but that there's even been studies now from so-called what they like to call life gurus or life coaches, and those kind of people or educational therapists or specialists who say that to get the point across and for it to be absorbed properly, then you should repeat the important things 3 times.
3 times, yes.
And we know the Prophet ﷺ used to do this. You know,
And you'll find today, as you said, these specialists, public speakers. I'll listen to a lecture and the guy will say the thing 3 times in the lecture. SubhanAllah. You know?
and you'll also
There's
find,
studies
you know,
about that.
that can be related to that teacher you saw in the mosque. That maybe the boy made 1 or 2 mistakes, he gets a slap. You know, doesn't even you know, allow the chance to repeat it 3 times, for
Right.
example. Or many of us, many people who are involved in education, they become impatient when the child didn't understand it
Right.
after the first or second explanation, where the Prophet ﷺ's general rule was to explain it 3 times. So this is also a lesson to us that this, you know, not everyone's the same. There'll be some children or some adults who will understand that principle the first time, and there'll be some that won't. And that's why you mentioned, you know, like even if you listen to some of the scholars or students' knowledge lectures, you'll find that they indirectly will repeat. So they'll give the principle, and they'll say, okay, Ikhwan, did you understand this? And they'll give the principle, and then towards the end they'll say, so as we discussed, and they'll mention it again for the 3rd time.
That's right.
And you don't even realize it, but if you look at most of these lectures, especially of the ones who are really founded in Islamic knowledge, the scholars or the strong students of knowledge, you will see they do this without you even realizing.
That's right.
Go and listen to a lot of those lectures and you'll see, especially in Arabic,
Yes.
he did that 3 times.
MashaAllah. So, I mean, if you see right now, we spend the bulk of the time speaking about very basic things, you know, about kindness, character. Again, these are the first thing that a teacher should exemplify. This is when you walk into the environment, be it a classroom, whatever it is. You know, that rapport with the student, where the student now is open and he's becoming a sponge and he's ready to absorb. And when you miss any of these, when you're too harsh, you don't have the proper appearance, you don't have the kindness, you don't have the love, the desire, they feel it and they close, you know. They close, and that will not go through. You educate, whatever you're trying to impart to them, whatever you try to give them, it's not going to go in. So you might have a lot of good knowledge, but people shut down when they see you, when there's, you know, you don't have a rapport, there's no proximity, there's no kindness. They don't feel that this person is teaching from their heart. And that's the amazing thing. The Prophet ﷺ, even the non-Muslims who didn't believe in him, they had a hard time resisting him. His character, his charisma, you know, everyone would, you know, gravitate around him. People wanted to be around him. People wanted to discuss with him and so on. We know what happened. Yes, we know that people had animosity towards him because of his message. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, it's not you that they're rejecting. It is Allah, yani. They're rejecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His message. It's not that they have a problem with the Prophet Muhammad, with Muhammad ibn Abdullah. They have a problem with Rasulullah because he's claiming to be the Prophet and he's bringing the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is very important to understand this, you know, that a teacher has to have that. Then we can move on now to, well, how are you going to teach? What are the ways? How are you going to impart this knowledge? What's the pedagogy that you're going to use, and so on. And the Prophet ﷺ, of course, he was an expert in this because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with that. But again, he had the prerequisites for being a teacher, and people were listening to him. People were ready to listen to him. When he would open his mouth, you would know. His humbleness, again, something that maybe we forgot to mention, you know. When someone, you know, today, of course, people talk about this whole, you know, the whole alpha male, you know, dominant, you know, character and so on, be cocky and so on, you know. But the reality is that the Prophet ﷺ had that. This whole strong character was in its right place in war or when dealing with, you know, issues, right? But not in, you know, your regular interaction with the human being. And that's the beautiful thing about a person who understands life, who's able to mold according to each different situation. The Prophet was an expert in that. You know, this is a real human being. Not all the time, like, you know, you go here, you go here, you're always harsh. No. In this situation, you're like this. In the other situation, you're different. In this situation, you're different. And you're able to switch between those situations right away and to adapt. And you understand who you're speaking to. Here you're speaking to a certain person at this level. Here you're speaking to a certain person at this level. And you adapt to this and this. You're not going to speak the same. And we know the Prophet never spoke the same. Sometimes he gave a different answer for the same question because he understood this person is here, this person is here. This person is coming from this background, this person is coming from this background. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ gained the hearts of the people. This is why the Prophet ﷺ, you know, when people were harsh to them, he was kind to them. And we know the The famous scenario of the Bedouin who came to the masjid and urinated in the masjid, you know? And we see the normal reaction of most of the people, like you and I, would be like, you know, going, you know, what is he doing? And, you know, about to push him or something. And that's what some of the Sahabas were going to do. And is anyone even close to being like the Sahabas? No. But look at the Prophet ﷺ. Let them finish, kind, speak to him, you know, and look at the result. What did the Bedouin man say? He made dua, he says, may Allah forgive me and Muhammad only, you know. And the Prophet ﷺ said, you made something very vast, you know, very restricted, right? But look, the man understood that this is a real person. I'm going to make dua for him. And that's what happened with the student too. When the teacher earns the heart of the student, not by slapping him, not by putting fear, instilling fear and so on, but by instilling love and inspiring them, compassion, mercy, proper traits and character, then amazing, because that student will always remember you. And I'm sure all of us have at least one teacher in our life that we all remember, that they inspired us, that they were just different, that they were just, there's something that caught and, you know, and gained our love and our heart to this person, and we will always remember them, and we always praise them, and we make dua for them and whatnot. You know?
Well, Jazakallah khair for sharing that. And like you said, a lot of these changes, they're very, in theory, they're very easy changes, just slight adaptations to our character or the way that we deal with people or we teach, whether you're in education or whether you're not in education, just how you deal with people on a daily basis. We can learn from these points we discussed today. So Jazakallah khair for coming on. And also to the viewers, like I mentioned, we had some very beneficial points, inshallah, we can take away with us, whether you're in education or you're not in education, just for our daily lives in dealing with people, passing on the message of Islam even. So inshallah, until next week, same time, same place, inshallah, here on Live by Islam. I leave you with the greetings of Islam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. I can't explain the world we in. I look around and see all things beautiful, no mistakes, he won't let us down. He's the one that can create all from nothing to something. So let us pray and let us thank him for each day. La ilaha.
Live by Islam.